I hope you remember that last week we arrived to one of the most important milestone and the turning point of forming of world economic system, which is the turning point. This is the period of great geographical discoveries. I hope you remember that the maker of world economic system theory, Immanuel Wallerstein, defined as a starting date of formation of world economic system the geographical discoveries, because the geographical discoveries was the gate and were the different direction, the gate for entrance European civilization to the direction of Indian Ocean, direction of Atlantic Ocean, Pacific Ocean, everywhere, which finally unified, according to European standards, whole of the global economic system. This was the last slide of the last week. I hope you remember which were the most important causes of geographical discoveries based to European resources, Reconquista, continuation of Reconquista, Reconquest, which was the reconquest of Iberian Peninsula. On the Iberian Peninsula, a huge number of professional soldiers evoluted and formed, and for this large community who specialized to the war, necessary to find a new place for soldier lifestyle. First started to conquest northern part of Africa, unsuccessfully, because the northern African countries, so strong, rejected European invasion, turned toward Africa and turned toward American civilization. The second one, Christian church missionary ambition. It's very important, even as I mentioned in the last week, in the second wave of Columbus, brought 6 or 8 monks, Benedict monks, to the New World. And the Turkish conquest of the Mediterranean Mediterranean basin, because the trade into the direction of Indian Ocean became very, very expensive. And the European merchant tried to find a new way for Eastern trade. And finally, precious metal hunger. It means European civilization in international and global comparison much lower developed compared with China, compared with India, and compared with Muslim civilization. Therefore, precious metal pump, it pushed out the precious metal. Not by chance, on the time described first time the legend of El Dorado. You know the legend of El Dorado. Everything is precious metal, even the leaf on the trees, everything. And the people who discover El Dorado became rich people without any efforts. Okay. The most important devices of geographical discoveries, technical innovation. I hope you remember, which I spoke on the case of wheat culture. Wheat, its density of population based to the wheat is very moderate. Therefore, from the source, from the beginning, European civilization open for technical innovation. Not by chance, majority of technical innovation invented not European inventor, but majority borrowed from Asia, China mainly, compass and gunpowder and the other. But very important, how the name is, it's rebirth of knowledges of antiquity. You know the great wave of Renaissance, rebirth of antique knowledges, antique information, antique sciences, and translated from Latin and from Arabic language, majority of works of Aristotle. You know the story? Aristotle. Majority of works, Aristotle, flow into the Muslim culture. Why? Because after the fall of antique culture, large area of former Roman Empire became a part of Muslim civilization, northern part of Africa, Near East, and Persia, and which was the capital on the Middle Ages of Muslim civilization, Baghdad. And the basic trait of culture of Baghdad came from the Greek and the later from Roman culture. And a lot of verses of Aristotle translated to Arabic and retranslated to Latin. Therefore, a Renaissance, it was the age of translators. Translated contemporary languages, German, Italian, and English, former Arabic and Greek and Latin authors' work. And if we compare the civilization level of antiquity and the 16th century, much lower. Therefore, the translation helped a lot equalizing the culture and improve the quality of the culture, quality of the knowledges. Because, for example, when translated books of generals like Julius Caesar, it was the great step for the birth of art of war. Because in the Middle Ages, the strategy very simple. Two army rode in front of to each other and kill each other. No strategy, no complicated strategy. But in the antiquity was a great evolution, different strategy, how the name is, there is a Greek general who used how the name, this was the Greek general strategy, that one side of army it's strengthened and other one a weaker one. You know this strategy? And started, for example, battle. Other army it's a normal. Therefore, the pressure here so high that broke the right wing and closed army, the enemies in circle. For example, it's very simple strategy. We see very simple. It's overrating one side of the army, and with help of this very simple strategy, able to win a critical battle. It's very simple, only translated from Greek generals' works. Okay, scientific innovation, technical innovation. In Europeans, comparison with China and comparison with India, only two fields had advantage. The first one, art of war, military knowledges, and knowledges concerning navigation. No any other, only navigation and military knowledges. Good. Very important, movable cannons and portable muskets. I spoke about this problem in last lecture. And upvaluation of infantry. Upvaluation of infantry based to using firearms. And this was the most important infantry troops. Spanish musketeers, German Landsknechts, Swiss halberdier, and Turkish Janissary. Okay, look at the geographical discoveries. Basically, the geographical discoveries, if we are looking at geographical discoveries, we have to speak about 6 nations. I spoke about these 6 nations which organize a great geographical discoveries. The first one, Portuguese. The second one, Spaniards, Spain and the Spanish people. The third one are English people, Dutch people, French people, and very important to mention, a Russian. I spoke about it. A Russian discovered Siberia and occupied the northern part of the Americas, it's Alaska, before 60s of 67, I remember. This was the Treaty of Alaska, when the United States bought the Alaska. But before that, it was a part of Russia. Therefore, if we are speaking about geographical discoveries, we have to calculate at least 6 nations, 6 European nations who participated in the geographical discoveries. The first one was a Portuguese. Portugal, it's located in the peripheral area of Europe. It's a peripheral area of Europe. It's a little brother in the case of Iberian Peninsula, a big brother, of course, Spain. Why so important? In the case of China, I spoke about the advantage of Portugal. Because if we are looking at China, in the case of China, we spoke about at the beginning of this course, the rivalry between empire and economy. And when empire stronger than the economy, interest of empire dominate the policy and the politics. But in the case of Europe, no empire which covered whole of the continent. Therefore, in Europe, the integrated space was economic space. Therefore, dominated economic interest of economy. Portugal on the peripheral area, very open toward Atlantic Ocean, and followed its interest, which are the interest, discover environment and organize the trade with northern part of Africa. Look at this story. If we are looking at Portugal, this animation shows well which was the process of reconquest of Muslim caliphates of Cordoba, and later it's fall down and disintegrated to smaller Muslim countries, and finally formed Portugal and formed Spain. But very important to mention, in the case of Spain, in Spain, it's no integrated country, even though. Look at the story of Catalonia. Look at the story of Basque area. It's no integrated area. And somebody play a football? Okay. You know, for example, a rivalry between Barcelona and Real Madrid. But rivalry between Athletic Bilbao, which is the capital of Basque land, and rivalry with any others. Very important, local identity. It's not integrated. The basis of integration is a fierceful Christian mentality. No national identity. It's a little bit the same situation. It's possible, I told to you, that a same situation in the case of Scotland. I spoke about a Scottish championship, you know? No, I didn't speak about. In the case of Scotland, there are two football teams which dominate: a Celtic Rangers and the Glasgow Rangers. A Celtic Rangers founded by Irish immigrants. I spoke about. Okay, you know the story. It's very important, the local identity. It's dominate the history of Iberian Peninsula. Okay, Portugal. Portugal reconquered from the Muslim countries, Muslim rulers, to the middle of 13th century. And very important milestone of formation of Portugal discoveries, the history of Henry the Navigator. Henry the Navigator was the member of royal family, the third son of John I, King of Portugal. He wasn't the first birth, no, the primogenitors devoted for ruling. Therefore, he had to find a profession. It was a normal election, normal decision that became a general, a politician, or leader of Roman Catholic Church. But he was a very special character, and he became scientist. In the Middle Ages, it's a very strange decision from member of royal family, and founded a headquarter of scientific research. concerning the navigation. And very important milestone of Portuguese discoveries, ruling years of John II, King of Portugal, because he interested for navigation, he interested for geographical discoveries, and invested huge amount from the Portuguese budget to the discoveries. Looking the Harry the Navigator, he was the third son of John I, King of Portugal. No chance for ruling because had two older brothers. Received one great castle, Vila de Infante, on the Sagres Peninsula, the southern part of the Portugal, and necessary to finance somehow the investment, and participated in the trade of Sahara. And very important in his work, the legend of Prester John. Prester John, you know the legend of Prester John? That it was a classical Christian legend, that the Christian people told to one to other for century by century that behind Muslim and the pagan people living a Christian country, a real Christian country, and the mission of Portuguese, Spaniards, Russian, and any others that help to the country of Prester John. Prester John, a king of the Christian country. One situation is true, it was Ethiopia. Because situation of Ethiopia, more or less, it's the same as a legend of country of Prester John, behind the Muslim world, some Christian country. Okay, Henry the Navigator sponsored the voyages and not only sponsored the voyages to the northern African country, but collected information about the navigation. Each great merchant ship, there is a logbook. Everybody know which is the logbook? This is the diary of the ship. Each important information the captain wrote to the diary, to the logbook, which is the important information for the sailors. The direction of wind, direction of ocean current, and the weather. And in Vila de Infante, this was the first great revolution of big data, collected information about the direction of wind, ocean current, and the typical weather according to calendar. It's very important. Not by chance, this Vila de Infante, big data center, saved by guard, special royal guard, because it was a crucial information on the time of great geographical discoveries. Very important looking, probably you know this theory, it's a quite old and quite popular theory of strategic planning, introduced by Antwerp Humphrey, but very interesting to see the case and the case study, the situation of Portugal on the time of geographical discoveries. This is the matrix of SWOT analysis, strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats. If we are looking, this is internal origin, external origin, helpful and harmful. If we are looking the matrix of SWOT analysis, we can see situation and the position of Portugal. If the strength, autonomous power, follow its interest, which is the interest of Portugal and the Portuguese, increase the efficiency and the profit of trade. Develop the economy. Why develop the economy? Because in connection with Muslim countries. On the time, a Muslim were more developed than Europeans. Like a sport, if somebody would like to develop, necessary to play a better player. If you play time by time worse player, you win the match, but no chance for developing. In the case of Portuguese, collaboration with Muslim countries insisted to develop. Large fleet. Portugal, if we are looking, there are and there were, of course, a long coastal area, lot of place for making ports, making harbors. Look at the weakness. Very important weakness that very far from the European economic center, which were the economic center, northern part of Italy and low country and southern part of England. Very far. Opportunity. Openness toward the ocean. It's on the time of geographical discoveries, openness toward ocean, it's great advantage. Look at Hungary. Hungary is a landlocked country. We can imagine and dreaming about the geographical discoveries and the sailing, no chance, no coastal area. In the case of Portugal, it's geographical condition. Very important, you remember the story of Venice and the Venetian trader. Venetian trader won the rivalry against the Florentine and the Genoese trader, which is the option of losers. Losers, Florentine and Genoese merchant, Mediterranean trade monopolized by Venetian. Therefore, the losers, Florentine and Genoese trader, moved to other direction. Therefore, arrived a lot of Italian trader to Portugal and tried to organize some business. It's very important opportunity. But threats, Islamic State. In the case of Iberian history, very important motive. Afraid that Muslim troops will come back. After reconquest, the generation by generation memorized the story that this country for centuries occupied by Muslim troops. Therefore, there is a fear from back to Muslims. And forming Spain, big brother. Temporary, time by time, Spain tried to conquer and unified whole of the Iberian Peninsula. Look at the consequence. Bad direction. Okay, if you are looking at Portuguese Maritime Empire, focused to northern part of Africa, which were the most important products of northern part of Africa. Gold, this was the first one, and slave and the ivory. Not by chance, if we are looking at Bay of Guinea, historically there are three names: Gold Coast, Golden Coast, Slave Coast, and Ivory Coast. Because in the northern African trade, this was the three crucial products. If we are looking to develop the map of Portuguese trading empire, we can follow that colonized the coastal area of Africa, and Bartolomeu Diaz reached southern part of Africa and discovered the eastern part of Africa and sailed to Indies and finally Indonesia and arrived to Japan. In Japan formed quite a large Christian community, and international treaty received Brazil, eastern part of southern part of Americas, but this is another story. Very important consequence of Portuguese discoveries, which started with the discovery of Bartolomeu Diaz and later Vasco da Gama, that large fleet of Portuguese merchant vessels regularly sailed from Lisbon to Indies. The capital is Lisbon, and look at a short movie about Lisbon. Sorry.
So you can go to the
Sorry, no voices. Pardon. Okay.
From its early days as a Phoenician outpost to its expansion into a 16th century trading giant, from the Great Earthquake of 1755 to its glorious reconstruction, Lisbon has long been a city of shifting fortunes. For much of the 20th century, the city floundered, but the winds of fate have again shifted in Lisbon's favor. No longer a place of faded glory, 21st century Lisbon is again a place of possibilities. This is a city whose journey has forever been tied to the sea. So it's not surprising that many of her most important landmarks can be found along the waterfront. Rising from the banks of the Tagus River, the fortified elegance of the Torre de Belém stands as a reminder of Portuguese prestige and power in days of old. Just upriver rises the monument of the discoveries, which celebrates the nation's most revered seafarers, such as Prince Henry the Navigator, Vasco da Gama, and Ferdinand Magellan. Climb to the rooftop and look down upon the Mapa Mundi below, which charts the routes and discoveries of Portugal's intrepid mariners. Nearby, continue your voyage into Lisbon's seafaring past at the Genoa Monastery. Vasco da Gama spent his last night in prayer on this site before departing on his epic voyage to the Orient in 1497. The vast monastery that stands today was funded by the incredible wealth that the Gama's spice route brought to the city. This vast monastery complex is also home to the city's Maritime Museum, which preserves relics from Portugal's golden age of sail. In the early 1800s, Portugal's rulers forced resident monks to vacate their beloved monastery. Destitute, the monks sold a prized possession, their secret egg tart recipe. 5 generations later, the neighboring Belém patisserie serves over 20,000
Sorry, but it should be prepared. This movie, but I forgot. Okay, which were the most important deeds for seizing international trade? I hope you remember which is the international trade activity which made the highest profit. A spice trade. A spice trade. Former time, Venice and the Venetian trader monopolized the spice trade. Why? Because organized the chain trade, which started from island of Indonesia, activated by Muslim trader who brought the bags of the spice to Alexandria. In Alexandria, Venetian trader bought the spice bags, transported to Venice, and from Venice distributed by Jews and German traders. This is the structure. It's very expensive because a lot of people participate in the trade. Everybody would like to earn money. Therefore, step by step, like avalanche, increase the expense of the trade. But the great invention of Portuguese sailor, it's find the way, the direct maritime way to Indonesia via vessels. And Bartolomeo Diaz and Vasco da Gama discovered the direct maritime way and pushed out a Venetian trader, and the Portuguese trader monopolized the spice trade. Second step, necessary to pay for spice with precious metal. But Portuguese trader no any connection to the precious metal. Somebody know in the Middle Ages which country mined the highest rate of precious metal? Which European countries? Guess.
England?
No? Hungary. Hungary was first in silver, second in gold, but who was the first in gold and second in silver? Bohemia, Czech area, Czechia, in the Middle Ages. And not by chance, for example, the famous merchant house, German merchant house, a Fugger merchant houses, organized mining in Hungary and organized local enterprises for making and organizing and somehow take the international trade, the Hungarian precious metal. Okay, but it's very moderate, not enough quantity, but somehow necessary to collect together European precious metal. But the Portuguese very far even to Hungary or Czechia. Therefore, necessary to find some trader who collaborate for gathering a precious metal. It were a German trader. Therefore, a Portuguese wasn't able to organize alone the international trade, but necessary to collaborate with German trader who founded local enterprises in Hungary and in Bohemia. And very important to mention, majority in Central Europe, majority of citizens in Hungary, in Bohemia, German people. Hungarian cities and the Bohemian Czechia cities bilingual, Hungarian and German. Look at, for example, who is one of the most famous author of Prague, capital of Czech Republic, Franz Kafka. In which language wrote his novels? German. It's very important because in Central Europe we are not able to use the indicator of national identity because the population, according to nationality, it's a mixed. The most popular author of Prague, a German, who wrote in German. Okay, therefore, in Central Europe, a lingua franca, a common language, was a German. And necessary collaborate with German merchant. Commercial network of distribution, as I mentioned in the case of Venice, organized by, beside the Jews, organized by German merchant. Very important, a new capital of international trade became Antwerp. Recently one city of Belgium. But historically, this is a low country between Denmark and France, a historical, geographical approach. It's very special space, and I try to show one short movie. I hope that I will more successful. That in the case of Lisbon, look at some visual impression had to be about this country, about this city.
Kiadó sajtburgerbox a KFC-től. Csak
Sorry,
1990.
it's not Antwerp. Yeah,
Miért van a lámpák tudnak ekkora raktárépületet?
it's a commercial.
Today we are in Antwerp.
A relaxing weekend is guaranteed in Antwerp, the second biggest city in Belgium. From culture and history to luxury chocolate. Let's go! Everything now in 3 minutes. The Grote Markt Square is at the center of the city. From here you can easily reach all the main sites.
The tower of the Cathedral of Our Lady at 123 meters is the tallest in Belgium.
The church was opened almost 500 years ago and at the time was it the largest Gothic building in the Netherlands. Around the church there are many restaurants serving typical mussels with fries. Museum in the world, Planta Moretus is now a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
Trying out the exhibits here is allowed and recommended.
Completely preserved and ready for printing. These are some of the oldest printing presses in the world. Even after many centuries, these presses could print again today. There is a Belgian chocolate factory in this magnificent building.
The chocolate lamp produces award-winning chocolate, a truly delightful pleasure that is light on your pocket.
We gave in to the urge and bought also some chocolate. The Rubens house is just around the corner and is a cultural highlight. Antwerp is especially beautiful in the summer. There are also many cruise ships docking here at the second largest port in Europe.
Hesting is located directly by the water and the oldest building in the city.
At St. Michael's parking is free of charge.
From the museum Anderstrom you can admire the best view of the city. Let's take a look.
This museum is huge. It's like visiting another world on each floor. Interactive exhibitions are everywhere. From the panoramic platform on the 10th floor, you can enjoy a fabulous view of the city, and it's free if you don't visit the museum.
Ghent is just half an hour from Antwerp, so check out our Ghent video.
Okay. Some visual impression. It's very important because we are speaking about the people, about the geographical sites, and necessary to take some impression about it. Look at why became Antwerp the core area, the capital of firming world economy. The first important, this is not only port of the northern sea, but the port of Scheldt River, therefore connected back to the continental area. The second one, commercial tradition of Low Country. Probably you remember from the age of high Middle Ages that the Low Country connected to the Baltic area via Hanseatic League and connected to the continental area. Therefore, it's very important and ideal crossroads for European trade. The third one, crossroads to the northern trade, that it's the Baltic Sea and partly the Russian lands, and quasi-independent country. I hope you remember that in the case of Champagne fairs, I told to you that the merchant would like to avoid any strong political power. Any strong political power. Selected Champagne area because Champagne area somehow offshore area. Didn't connect it nor the France, neither to the Holy Roman Empire. Independent country with weak ruler. This is the same situation in the case of Brabant. Brabant, this is the name of province. Because officially this was a part of Holy Roman Empire, but practically the emperor is very far. No practical day-by-day occasion for participate in economic and political life of the city. Independent country, quite quasi-independent country. Port of the German merchant houses. The most important merchant houses, Fuggers, Imhof, and the Walsers came from the Nuremberg or Augsburg, necessary to select one international port. And for them, who collected the precious metal of Central Europe, official port was Antwerp. Therefore, Antwerp became leading city, whole of the world, as a meeting point between German and Portuguese. A local people didn't participate in the international trade, only German and the Portuguese. It's a meeting point, no more. And very important, religious toleration. This is the time of Reformation and Counter-Reformation. And very important indicator of developed country, toleration. Toleration of everything. It's very important cultural and economic indicator. If there is a toleration, generally developed country. Untoleration, a country is down. It's obvious and quite evident. And dominated by foreigner. As I mentioned, a citizen of Antwerp didn't participate in the international trade, only offered the place and occasion for German and Portuguese. We are over. Okay, and the key actor from the side of German, a Fugger family. There are a Hungarian student, raise a hand, Hungarian student. There is a Hungarian word, because the Hungarian kingdom participated and collaborated with Fugger family, and from the 16th century, one Hungarian word came from the name of family, Fukar. Somebody know which is the good English translation of Fukar? It's I don't know, but there is one Hungarian word who saved the money very strictly, came from the name of Fugger family, which is I don't know which is the good translation, but not important. Again? CG. Okay, this is came from the Hungarian Fukar, came from the family, because it's a rational mentality. It's quite strange on the time of Middle Ages. And very interesting the story, the richest leader of Fugger family, Jacob Fugger. Jacob Fugger had a nickname, Jacob Fugger the Rich. He was the richest person whole of Europe, contemporary Europe. He was chancellor of Emperor Charles V, Emperor of Holy Roman Empire. And very interesting, Jacob the Fugger was very sensible for social problems. He founded a building and one social organization, a poor people living in Augsburg. The poor people had a job, received a flat inside of the Fuggerei, it's named Fuggerei, it's a social building, and necessary to pay, it's very moderate rent for the flat. It's very early and very interesting example of social sensibility on the side of rich people. Okay, if we are looking at merchant houses, at German merchant houses, we can realize the most important commercial axis of contemporary Europe. This is the east to west axis and north to south axis. It's a cross over German merchant houses. If we are looking at Antwerp, we can identify three periods of heyday. The first period started at the beginning of the 16th century when the Portuguese trader monopolized the trade of spice. And the first heyday closed with a war, because we are on the late Middle Ages and early modern time, and in this period different countries and different dynasties and different rulers time by time started war to each other. And 1523 started a war between Emperor of Holy Roman Empire and King of France. This is the Habsburg-Valois war, which temporarily paralyzed international trade. The second period, the second heyday period, started with Spanish discoveries. Why? Because Spain colonized central and southern part of Americas and discover a new precious metal mining sites. Like the most famous was a Potosi in southern part of America. I remember in Bolivia. And American precious metal flow into international trade and form a triangle of international trade. A precious metal came from America, arrived to Europe, from Europe flew into Asia, and the Asian products, luxury products, came back to Europe and partly to Americas. This was the first triangle, and European products flew into Americas, and time by time America's precious metal directed right to Asia. This is the triangle, first triangle of international trade. A Spanish period closed to the peace treaty of Cato Cambresis, which closed the war between the Habsburg and Valois dynasty, and closed to the age of Antwerp too. And after that started an industrial period. This is the trade network of Antwerp, and very interesting the story of closing Age of Antwerp. Age of Antwerp, when a German and Portuguese trader directed the forming international trade from Antwerp, closed with the peace treaty, closed the war between Valois and Habsburg dynasty. But why? A peace treaty, a good information, good news. But in this case, not. Why? Because each of participant, each of actor of war declared bankruptcy. You know which is the bankruptcy. The ruler, the king and the emperor declared don't want to pay any loan. Nothing. And very interesting the reaction, the international reaction. Everybody knew that the most important bank of Holy Roman Emperor, son of the Charles V, Philip II, a Fugger family, and started the first bank panic. The bank panic, which is the psychology of bank panic. Every small depositor who took the deposit to the Bank of Fugger ran and asked back. But very interesting in this story that the Fuggers formed so high stock of fortune, stock of budget, that was able to paying back each deposit, but lost the confidence. And the company and the Bank of Fugger exist recently in Augsburg. Survived 5 centuries, but wasn't able to turn back to the top of international trade. Why? Because the most important fortune in the international trade, the confidence. If some organization lost the confidence, no way back. It's very important to memorize. Okay, Antwerp down with the Fuggers, with the German bank houses, and necessary to find new organizer of international trade. And after failing down of Portuguese and the German, appeared and stepped onto the desk a new candidate, a Genoese trader. Why so good election? Because for the Holy Roman Emperor, necessary to finance the expense of international commercial empire connected to Spain, Africa, and Americas, but some words necessary who came from Africa. And very important to speak a little bit about Africa. In the case of Africa, if we are looking Africa, where is that? Because in the case of formation of global trade, generally I spoke a peripheral Africa, but necessary to speak a little bit more deeper. More or less, this is the form of Africa. If we are looking at the history of Africa, necessary to speak about the most important boundary, this is the Sahara. In the case of Sahara, this is important boundary because divide 2 parts of Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa and a Muslim area. It's a white Africa. This is the part of Muslim civilization. If my information is not correct, interrupt me, because I am not specialist of African studies. Some books I read and try to integrate to the other knowledges. Okay, interrupt me. It's very important because I can learn new information. Good. Therefore, this is the Sub-Saharan Africa. And if we try to realize the great cultural area, we can divide at least 4 great civilization and historical geographical units. One, it's important, the area of Bay of Guinea. As I mentioned former time, this is the entrance of European civilization. European civilization, Portuguese, Spaniards, English and French people first time arrived in the area of Bay of Guinea, named Slave Coast, Ivory Coast or Golden Coast. In this area formed a smaller unit, smaller states. And the most dangerous element, appearance of European, try to integrate the local people and the local countries to the international trade. One of the most important advantage of European are knowledges using of firearms. In this area, distributed huge quantity of firearms. Local people wasn't able to make gunpowder and the bullets. Therefore, closed to the tramp of trade, because for gunpowder and for bullet necessary to pay somehow, with slave, with ivory, and with gold. And somebody know, since the 16th century, how many percent of African people sold as a slave? How many percent of African population? My guess. How many percent? 70? Tin or T? T. Other offer? 85. Other last offer?
I would say over 100. Over 100.
Over
100. Over 100. Let's say 100.
100? No.
100 million.
Sorry.
Like 100 million, right?
100?
Yes.
No,
Million.
it's not possible. 1%. More people died for tropical disease. The proportion not so tragical. But the trade integration became a tragical. Why? Because integrated the local people to the trade, to the chain of the trade, for gunpowder and the bullets and the muskets, even in the 16th century. 1 million muskets distributed. It's like a pyramid trade. 1 million. And change the political structure of Africa. Why? Because introduced a new form of the state of landlords. And for landlords, which is the normal condition, a warfare, a continuous warfare. Warfare with each other, because the fruit of war are slaves. And this integrated the political structure of Africa. Okay, this is the Guinea, this is the Bay of Guinea, this is the most tragical area of Europe, most tragical area of Africa. Okay, this is the other area, it's a Sudan. It's a great historical Sudan. It's very interesting because each important dynasty of Sudan came from the marriage. A marriage with one people who came from Sahara, a prince or princess, a nomadic people, and one bride who, a local, settled down African people specialized to the plant farming. And very interesting, the majority of capital of Sudan, as a historical geographical area, form two parts. The tents of nomadic people and the mud buildings of agrarian population. Okay, it's a Sudan. In internal part of the area of Africa, it's area of the Great Zimbabwe, the Great Zimbabwe. It's formed on the 14th and 15th century. It's very important civilization. Size of the capital, the walls of the capital, 70 meters high. It's great African civilization. Not by chance, Europeans never tried to conquer a continental area of Africa before 16th century. But in consequence of trade, trade intrusion to Africa, destroyed the political structure. And became everyday's practice ruling of warlords. Warlords, you know which is the warlords. the fruit of war, made a fruit of the war. It's war continuously from each to other, which destroyed the steady structure of African civilization. Therefore, not the losing of slavery, which was the greatest strike for the African civilization, but the unbalanced, unequal trade, which made by distribution of firearms. Okay, but turn back to the story of Age of Genoese. Ferdinand Rodolph wrote about Age of Genoese. The rule of the Genoese was so discreet and sophisticated that historians for a long time failed to notice it. Why? Because a Genoese organized international, global trade with very closed and very small number of traders. The member of this small circle of Genoese traders who organized international global trade, it's approximately 20 families, no more than 20 families who organize international trade from Spain, from Cadiz, from Sevilla to Veracruz, Mexico. Okay, look at the story. Genoa, it's a little bit similar like Venice, but the geographical background it's a less able to defend local people. Why? Because behind Genoa there is a mountain area. After appearance of cannons, no chance for saving the city. And very moderate, sorry, look at the movie about it. Very moderate coastal area used for making buildings. But look at one short movie about it. Sorry for that.
Dimmi come si fa a essere felici di stare al centro di una città che ti fa sospirare. Quante cose che avessi da dire, ora che il mondo si deve fermare. Poi ne parliamo semmai, qui non si può aspettare. Basterebbe fermarsi un minuto e guardarsi intorno. E sa che ci lascerà un pezzo del suo cuore.
Sorry, but I didn't want this one. Sorry.
Kiadó sajtburgerbox a KFC-től.
Sorry for that, but unfortunately, officially, we are not paying for.
Miért a lámpák tudnak ekkora raktárépületet?
Some mistake. Continue the historical analysis. Something I missed. Okay, look at maps. Basically, behind the city there are barren mountains. It's not usable. It's a barren mountains without trees, Because majority of trees hewed down on the time of Roman Empire. Because constructing to one galleys necessary 4 hectare forest area. Therefore, very easy to calculate how many vessels constructed from this area. Without trees. A narrow strip along the coast. We can realize here, very, very narrow strip, which able to make buildings. And the modern city back against a few the mountains. Turn westward, as I mentioned in the case of Portugal. You remember in the SWOT analysis, a Genoese trader lost the rivalry with Venetians, turned to the direction of Portuguese and Spain. Okay, it's over. If we are looking at historical Genoa, tiny settled valleys, narrow street, only 2 streets necessarily large for coach trade, coach service. Apennines, easy to overlook from the area of mountain the city. After appearance of artillery, no chance for defense. Vulnerable from sea, because if we are looking at Tyrrhene Sea, it's open. You remember the case of Adriatic Sea, free line of defense. In the case of Genoa, no chance for saving from defense from the direction of sea. Therefore, Genoa, because an open city, open toward the mountain, open toward the sea, try to organize the safeness with help of trade, with help of political connection. Depend outside of the world, population quite a high comparison, international comparison, lived 80,000 citizens. And population, whole of the empire, which contained the Sicily even, it's 500,000. Okay. If we are looking at Spanish Empire, a Spanish Empire made more or less each 20 years one bankruptcy. Which is the bankruptcy? Bankruptcy means that the ruler, the emperor declared no loan which paid. Which is the solution in this case? Which is the solution? Which introduced by Genoese trader. Look at the technology of Genoese trader survive the bankruptcy. Because in the case of ruler, in the case of emperor, no chance for discussion. That necessary to pay. I borrowed to you a loan, pay back. In the case of emperor, in the case of king, no chance. Therefore, loaning to king, loaning to emperor is very dangerous. Very dangerous, but the profit very high. Look at how. You remember the story of Fugger merchant houses? If declared that no paying back the loans, no any discussion. Genoese introduced a new construction. A new construction born a state merchant. A state merchant means 20 Genoese merchant houses who originally were bankers, businessmen, moved to Spain and became member of government. Banker, general. Banker, councillor. 2 identity. And participated not only collecting the money for the state loan, but organized the using the loaned money too. It's ideal, it's genial construction. First time when Genoese trader participated in the financing of Spanish Empire, even 1527, great deal, because nature of loan in the traditional time know that if, for example, you are asking credit from the banks, for example, 1 million euro, you necessarily paying back month by month by month. But the nature of paying back in the traditional time basically different. Basically different. The king never paid back month by month the loan, but the creditor received income of state For example, collecting the tax in Belgium. If very clever, collected more higher amount than the real normal tax and receive, for example, the law of organizing the trade, international trade with Americas. And not only increase the quantity of trade, but organize two levels of trade: official trade and the smuggling. In the case of smuggling, each product was a profit. Okay, that therefore was a great business to loaning to the state. Dangerous, but the profit more 100%. Like recently in the case, for example, European Union support, sometimes, some countries. Okay, one ideal example, this picture, Ambrogio Spignola Doria, a Genoese banker, who became a general of Spanish army, banker in Genoa, and in Spain, a general of Spanish army. Two identity. And 20 family organized the international trade between Americas and Spain. It was unbelievable intellectual performance. Why? Because go and back from Americas 1.5 years. Therefore, if somebody organized and no artificial intelligence, no computer, everything necessary to thinking through, no any devices, and organize the international trade for 1.5 years. Go and back. And for example, when one captain sailed to Americas, necessary to make each order which necessary to perform via 1.5 years. It's unbelievable. Very small circle who organized this international trade. And the Genoese system, which constructed at the turn of 16th and 17th century, functioned until the beginning of 19th century. Not by Genoese, but the basic structure used was the same, like constructed by Genoese. The Genoese banker collected the capital, the money surplus of Italy, and invested to the Spanish state. Dangerous gamble. Loaning to the state, very, very dangerous gamble. Because each day it's possible that the king declared no paying back. Very dangerous. But rate of interest changed between 10 to 30%. It's quite high compared with the recent rate of benefit. And international trade paid not only the coins, not the real money, but bill of exchange. You remember, bill of exchange, artificial money, introduced on the time of 13th century, on the time of Champagne, fair of Champagne. Artificial money. Not only 1.5 years thought in the time, but was able to use artificial money. Which is the artificial money? Write to one paper, this mean this value is 100 gold coins. And everybody accepted. For two reasons. For confidence and close circle. Everybody confidence to each other. But necessary to survive a regular bankruptcy which happen every second decades. Intercontinental trade, 1.5 year go and back. The real sailing no more than 3, 4, 5 months. But it's a very long journey. Therefore, the timber-made body of vessels necessary reconstruct, and necessary to wait the right wind and the right ocean current, because no engine. sailing and moving by ocean current. You remember the story of Henry the Navigator. This story continued on the time of early modern time, collected information. Big data. This was the first big data. Very interesting, the 17th century, the great century of geographical discoveries. The beginning of 17th century, three strategies of cognition rival with each other: rational, magical, and the theological. But to the end of 17th century, won by rational, and started the age of how the name is 18th century. It's a victory of rational thinking. How the name is? No, there is a special term. It's very late. To the next lecture I will see. This is the age of rational thinking. Therefore, the rivalry between magical. But on the 17th century, each important thinker used a magical, a theological, and the rational thinking. But in the international trade and international business, the most efficient was a rational thinking. Therefore, formation of world economy and international geographical discoveries was not only one source of collect rational information, but this was the background of victory of rational thinking. And recently, not by chance, since the 16th century, there is only one legitimate strategy of cognition, a rational strategy. And any other close to the you found? Enlightenment. Sorry, thanks a lot. Enlightenment. Age of enlightenment. Okay, but very late and the words don't come easy. Okay, intercontinental trade. Genoa fortune depend on the American treasure, Spain, and wealthy of Italy. 20 to 30 state merchant, hombre de negocios, as I mentioned in Spain, organized. Intercontinental trade, this is the map of intercontinental trade and one picture about the vessels. But at the beginning of 17th century, 1627, this is the end of ruling years of Genoa. This is the great bankruptcy, but not only the bankruptcy destroyed the age of Genoa, but this is the period decline of Mediterranean trade, Mediterranean economy. And Genoa, it's down with the decline of Mediterranean economy and rising the Portuguese rivals, bankers, rising of Dutch capitalism, because the next leading city, Amsterdam. And finally, this is the closing period of Mediterranean area and the new rising area, continental Atlantic Ocean and continental coast of Atlantic Ocean, and the followers of Genoa are Amsterdam. Participation in contraband of American silver, it's a smuggling, industrialization, because no chance for trading investment, therefore turned toward the industrial investment. But Genoa became a part of outskirts of Spanish Empire. New clients of money lending, France and Austria. Okay, thanks a lot for your attention.